Danila Yurov take a bow, his first career NHL goal, and a much more crisp Minnesota Wild performance against a New York Rangers team that is still trying to find what they do best. All told, though, a Wild win 3-1, and just a good kind of return to form in a lot of different areas. Filip Gustavsson looked much more crisp than he had in the previous few games. The Wilds had some offensive pressure, which has been a welcome sight after some struggles to do that in 5-on-5. Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Boldy continue to just wreck their opponents. And Danila Yurov taps one in to get his first career NHL goal. So nice bounce back for the Wild. A lot to dissect, as well as plenty of news to get to from over the weekend as well. You know what time it is. Let's postcast.
You are Locked On Wild Postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
The Minnesota Wild pick up a 3-1 win over the New York Rangers, and they are now 3-1 on the season. New York Rangers scored their first goal at home this year, but that was about it as far as the highlights go on their side, as they fall to 0-4 at home. And for the Minnesota Wild, you get tallies from Jonas Brodin, Danila Yurov, and then Kirill Kaprizov scores the empty netter to pick up the win. And for the Wild, the last couple games have not been great. But at some point, you figured that the dust was going to settle and that they were going to kind of get back to playing their game, which they did. There was a nice amount of offensive pressure in the first period. We just saw a good indication as to why Igor Shesterkin is one of the best goalies in the league. He was fantastic again tonight, but the Wild just kept pushing. They kept pushing in that first period, and it kind of settled everything else down. You sustain presence in the offensive zone. It leads to fewer shots against on the defensive side of the ice. And it just kind of led to everything not having to press so much and to force so much by being able to, actually go on offense for sustained periods of the game. Danila Yurov, let's talk about his first goal, though. Just a nice heads-up play by Yurov. He goes to the side of the net. There's a scrum in front of Igor Shesterkin. He makes the initial save. The puck comes loose, and Yurov tips the puck in. Tips. I'm not saying tips to that doesn't have any negative connotation to it. It's just he was that close to the net, and he buried it. And it was great to see. It was great to see for his confidence. He continues to make some major strides, continues to look the part. And, we continue to see the stick handling and playmaking abilities from Zeev Boyum, which continues to impress. And it seems like he's getting more confident every game he plays. Obviously, some things to keep an eye on this week. Marco Rossi missing the first game of his NHL career. Ryan Hartman came in, and he responded with an assist. He had 3 shots on goal, a couple blocks. He had a hit, and 7 out of 17 face-off wins for Hartman in that Rossi spot. But it seemed like, I've seen some of the comments already. It just seemed like we saw the Wild be able to comfortably roll 4 lines for the first time in a while. And we saw some combinations really do some nice things. That third line combination of Foligno and Trenyan, and I think Hartman played in that spot for a little bit. That third line combination did some really nice things against the Rangers. Top line, obviously, with Kirill and Boldy and Ek, they did a bunch of great stuff tonight. So nice return to kind of what we expected to see from this team and what has been missing. over the last few games. Let's get to the breakdown here before I hand out my standouts for tonight's game. 32 shots on goal for the Wild. One of and it's funny because they have actually been shooting the puck quite a bit. I know the last 2 games they didn't, but you have a game of 50-plus shots. They had another game of 40 shots. They get 32 tonight on Igor Shesterkin. No power play goals, but I thought the power play did a nice job of moving the puck tonight. Other numbers, you would expect the Rangers to have more hits because they were chasing. Marcus Foligno got completely decleated on a hit. It was a perfectly legal hit, by the way. He got decleated. He bounced right back up. Wild killed the only penalty kill or the only power play that they faced, and they blocked a bunch of shots. So it was just some good numbers all around by the Minnesota Wild in this one. As far as the offense goes, the Wild generated 2.83 expected goals. Now, they had 2 actual goals, and then they had the empty netter as well. They had 2 goals on Shesterkin and then the empty netter. The Wild had 49 unblocked shot attempts. So you want to talk about volume, shot volume. 49 unblocked shot attempts. That's a good number to get at a goalie, especially of Shesterkin's character and his caliber. 40 low danger, 6 medium danger, and 3 high danger. Still would like to see more work to get to the net. No coincidence that that's how Danila Yurov scored his first NHL goal, right out in front of the net. Still think the team needs to do more of that. But the fact that they got 49 shot attempts through, I should say, that was a solid night offensively. For the Wild on defense, the New York Rangers, they generated 2.74 expected goals. So pretty even as far as offensive performances go. The Rangers had 44 unblocked shot attempts, 32 low danger, 10 medium, and 2 high danger. Their lone goal against was a low danger shot. And that was was within the first minute of the game. And it was a puck that got by everybody. So it's another good example of what happens if you don't, if you aren't looking for the puck. That puck kind of rattled around the boards straight through pretty much everybody that the Wild had on the ice at that time. And Artemi Panarin, current New York Ranger, not sure how long that will last, but he deposits it for the first goal. But the Wild just kept doing their thing. So, tail of the tape, pretty even matchup here tonight. The deserve to win o-meter had the Wild at 54.5%. For those that don't know, courtesy of moneypuck.com, the deserve to win o-meter, it takes 1,000 simulations between the two teams, and it just gives you the percentage of which a particular team would win compared to the other team. And the Wild were at 54.5% tonight. So it was a close matchup between the two. Rangers, though, they are fighting it. Fighting it. That was the first goal that they've scored at home this season. That's not ideal. But standouts. Let's go to standouts here tonight. Number one standout, I'm going to give the nod to the entire line of Boldy, Eriksson Ek, and Kaprizov. They had a total. They had an expected goals of 52.5. They scored once. They did not give up a goal. outshot the Rangers 9-6 while they were out on the ice. And they just looked the part. They looked the part while they were out there on the ice. Filip Gustavsson gets another standout here tonight. His performance solidly above expected in the goal save department. And it seemed like he was much more comfortable. In net than he had been the last couple of games. And of course, we got to go with Danila Yurov, his first career NHL goal. Had a couple of other plays throughout the night that looked really solid. He had a couple shots on goal in this one, 3 of 8 in the faceoff circle, but getting power play time now, getting power play time on that second unit, actually having players on the second unit that can do some things is nice. It's nice to see. So good to see him continue to build that confidence. Zeev as well. You could give Zeev a standout for tonight. It just feels like he is just fluid out there. And he had a couple times on the power play, especially where he was able to just move past, like just gonna slide past you here, just gonna sneak past you. A couple of instances where he was able to do that to Rangers players on the perimeter. That's the kind of skating ability that we want to see. That we that's why they drafted him. That's why the Wild drafted him. Was his ability to do that, and he did. As far as the TJ O'Connor asked what the Wild penalty kill is at for the season. Now, it won't take into effect. It won't take tonight's performance into effect. The Wild are still leading the NHL at 38.5% on the power play. Their penalty kills at 70.6. Now, the penalty kill will go up slightly for their 1-for-1 performance. Power play will go down a little bit. But the power play just looks like visually, the power play just looks better than it has over the last couple of seasons. And I think that's because Zeev is looking to actually be part of the play as opposed to being the facilitator at the top. And the chemistry level that Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Boldy are putting together, really nice. Really nice. And that is, I think, the biggest thing for me as to why you can't split up. You can't split up Kaprizov and Boldy. I don't care what the rest of the lineup is like. Those two together are just too good to split. So, we talk about getting the second line more figured out. That is going to continue to be a work in progress. But they're going to have to just continue to get those figured out. And it's all about supplanting that top line. Now, Wednesday's game is going to be a bit of a test. We'll talk more about that after the break, but the New Jersey Devils off to a great start. Tons of young talent, tons of scoring, and tons of speed. So that's going to have to be something that you have your eye on. Keep your guard on. But all told tonight, a nice win, nice bounce back after 3 straight games that just were not visually appealing whatsoever. So we'll see if that continues into the game against the Devils. We have a bunch to talk about here after the break. So we're going to take a quick pause, but plenty more to postcast about here tonight. The Minnesota Wild pick up a 3-1 win over the New York Rangers. And we'll take your comments. We'll look at what's coming after this right here on Locked on Wild. Let's be honest. Most of us can't even name all of our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. My favorite part is Monarch shows me exactly where all of my money is going, whether it be to subscriptions, whether it be to groceries, to gas, whatever it may be. I know where every dollar is going so that I can better utilize some of those dollars that go to, things that I maybe don't necessarily need. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Today's postcast is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is in full swing, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. If you took my advice on the Vikings game against the Eagles, I'm sorry, because that was not great. And so if you took my advice, it did not lead to a hefty payout. But that's okay, because there's another game coming up. Oh, wait, it's against the Chargers. So maybe you want to just look a little down the line and go with an anytime touchdown from Justin Jefferson. That's probably a much better bet against a bad secondary for the Chargers. If that $5 bet wins, you got $300 in bonus bets to use however you see fit. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Welcome back. Postcast is here, and Minnesota Wild picked up a 3-1 win over the New York Rangers. They now will set their sights on the New Jersey Devils on Wednesday. That'll be a dicey one, but at least it's a 6:00 game. At least it's an East Coast game. I'm happy about that. Let's get to some of your questions because there's plenty to discuss. So we saw David Jiricek get brought back up after Zach Bogosian got hurt. Surprise, surprise. David Jiricek looks just fine in the lineup. Liam Ogren gets sent down to Iowa, and he scores within the first couple of minutes of his first shift with the Iowa Wilds. We've seen Zeev Buium make major strides. We've seen Danila Yurov continue to build his way through the lineup. So the question that I would like answered is how come those two can get into the lineup and kind of figure it out as they go. And we just continue to see Liam Ogren get the fourth line minutes, get sent down to Iowa. We see Jiricek play on the third pairing, get sent back down to Iowa. I'm just a little puzzled, I guess, by that. But let's just start with some of the questions. We'll start with Creepy Colors. Do you think Zeev could be on the wing? It just seems like the kid wants to play forward so bad. That's his calling card. I mean, his calling card is being an offensively inclined defenseman. He's still a very good defenseman, but the offense is really the part of his game that he brings to the table. So that's going to be where he gets his full opportunity to shine is on the power play. That's where he gets to use his creativity, and he can step up in the play on the back end too when he's out there defensively. That is something that has been kind of sporadic over the years. Is the ability to step up in the play, to let one rip, let a shot fly through. That's where Zeev's going to be able to make his presence felt while still being able to use some of his defensive abilities too. So I think defense is his calling card. We saw the Wild try Kalen Addison at a forward spot before he got traded, and it didn't work. It didn't work. Caden, I honestly think Danila has the skill to play in between Kirill and Zuccarello. Could then spread the wealth with Rossi and Boldy on the second line. I get what you're saying, but I'll go back to what we have seen from Matt Boldy since he has been paired with Kirill Kaprizov. And I'll do a deep dive this week on this topic. But Matt Boldy's numbers are exponentially better with Kirill Kaprizov on his line than they are without. I just think it is as simple as having Kirill on a line with Boldy forces him to be at his best every time he's out there on the ice. And I think that is worth keeping those two together to be the anchor of that offense. Because if you split the two up, then you're putting somebody who is less offensively inclined. I mean, in the case of Kaprizov and Zuccarello, it's probably fine. But Boldy and who? I think it just needs to be, that second line needs to be not band-aided. Like they need to fix that spot without just slapping a Band-Aid on it, like they have been trying to do over the last few years. All of the different players that they've had fill those spots have been nothing but Band-Aids. There hasn't been a single person that they've put in those spots. There hasn't been a single person that they've put in those spots that they've been like, this is the answer. This is the one to solve the problems. This is the one to finally end the quest to figure out who can play on that second line in that wing spot. It's the elusive unicorn. Part of me is convinced that it will never be fixed, but I don't know. Is there a stat tracker for how many times a center's kicked out of the faceoff circle? That's a great question. I'm going to have to do some looking on that, but that would be something I would be really interested to know too, because faceoffs, a lot of it depends on who the one dropping the puck is and their tendencies and how you react. Do they think you went early? That is a whole wrinkle to this whole thing that I think is definitely worth looking into. Imagine an entire show making Cam Fowler jokes. Well, Tuesday edition of Locked On NHL is just that show. Tarasenko has been really gun shy. Just needs to let it rip. I agree. He had no official shots on goal. He had one that missed the net. And I don't know if I'm just kind of being ignorant to the fact that, yeah, it probably takes a little while to get settled in, but one shot on goal is not gonna do it. He had 5 shots on goal in the first game of the season second game of the season against Columbus. Since then, it's been 1 shot on goal. One. It's not going to get it done. And he's got a good shot too. Like he had the one early in the season where he shot high and just kind of hit one off the goalie's mask. He's got a good shot. Just use it more. I don't know if he just doesn't think that. I don't know if he gets to the point where he thinks, well, I'm the third option on this line. No. If you have the puck, let it rip. Let that thing fly. That's why the Wild brought him in. They need him to be more of a shooter. Are you okay with Hinostroza on the power play as opposed to others on the roster? So Vinny, what did he have? He had 148 of power play time. So you've got Boldy, you've got Eriksson Ek, you've got Kaprizov. Those are your main anchors. And Vladimir Tarasenko has been the most consistent fourth. So those are your main four forwards is Boldy, Eriksson Ek, Kaprizov. Now, obviously, Rossi being out led to an opening because he gets a good portion of the power play time when he's playing. I would rather, we're getting to where we're seeing Danila Yurov get consistent play on that second line. If Vinny is a placeholder on that second unit, that doesn't bother me a ton. I guess the only other player that I would have really liked to see on the power play, actually, I take that back. I think pretty much everybody that should have did. You're not going to put Trenyon there. You're not going to put Pitlick there. You're not going to put Ben Jones there. You're not going to put Foligno there. So I think it's more so that Hinostroza just was, filling the Rossi spot tonight. But look, he battles on the boards, and I think there is something to be said about that. It's not the only thing. I think, honestly, at some points, the Wild kind of overvalue that compared to being able to generate offense. But the roster in and of itself is not full of guys that can generate their own shots. So you got to be able to do a little something different. I thought it was fine. I thought the power play did a good job of holding the zone for the most part tonight. They look more active this year than they did in previous seasons. The problem with Hartman is for every one good game he has 5 where he does nothing. You could remove Ryan Hartman's name from this, and you could remove Hartman's name and you could put pretty much any of those older guys in there instead. And that is a problem, is that consistency, which is why it's nice that we've seen Matt Boldy through the first, I know it's 7 games, but we've seen him active every night through the first 7 games of the season. And I think by putting him with Kirill consistently, I think that's going to force him to play better. So keep them together. Jojo used his powers for good tonight. He did have an assist. He did kind of start the front of the net scrum that led to the loose puck that led to Danila Yurov's goal. So we can't take that away from him. I did get a chuckle, though, seeing that he was the primary assist on that goal. I was like, okay. Faber still seems a bit off. Want to see him paired with Zeev. I do agree. But I think for Faber, honestly, I think it comes down to usage. I think you're seeing the price paid for the amount of minutes that he has been logging. And if you'll recall, we talked about this. There was that string of games where he played 30 plus minutes in 5 straight games. There's a toll to be paid for that. And just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should. I think if they can give Faber specific roles to fill on this team and put more trust in some of the other guys on the roster, I think that will help. I think you just got Faber's plate too full at this point. And once they take a little bit of the priorities off of it, I think that will allow his game to kind of pick back up. Some thoughts from Joe Smith, who is covering the game over in New York. And according to Michael Russo, Yurov's agents were at the game. Many of the Rangers players that he worked out with over the summer were at the game. And he, of course, delivers with his first NHL goal. Smith said, it was hard to wipe the smile off the face of Wild rookie Danila Yurov, who scored his first NHL goal tonight at MSG against Igor Shesterkin. Think about that, too. First career NHL goal against Igor Shesterkin in Madison Square Garden. That's not bad. He thought of his parents, his girlfriend, and his little sister. Yurov said, quote, "I am so happy." So very, very happy for him to pick that milestone up here tonight. Yeah, Yurov, this is a great point too. He is feisty out there. His defense plays immediately. And I think as much as I would like to see Liam Öhgren in the lineup right now, I think that's kind of why. I think the reason that Öhgren is continuing to kind of be in between is because he just doesn't have, that immediate put him in the lineup skill. Now, also, Yurov doesn't necessarily have the Öhgren doesn't have the KHL clause, so that probably has something to do with it too. But Yurov, between the two, Yurov has stood out more than Öhgren has. Like I don't think that's a controversial statement to make. Yurov has stood out. He has been noticeable more often than Öhgren has. At some point, Liam is going to have to get his opportunity to really prove that he's capable. But all this coaching staff seems inclined to do is to just plug these guys in on the fourth line. And then when they don't score like 15 goals, it's like, geez, we're giving these guys opportunities. Like, why aren't they making the most of them? It's like, you've seen who they're playing with? I don't know. That's just me. But yeah, all in all, it was another good point. He reads the game better. He is seeing the game. It's slowing down for him. He's making good reads. After 7 games, no, it's early, but what do you think his ceiling is second line for Yurov? Yeah, I think that is probably where he pegs in at this point. Now, I say this based on what he has done, especially defensively. We haven't really seen his offense take off yet. Once his offense gets going, maybe his ceiling's a little higher, but I think he could easily be a second line type player at this point, and he has plenty of room to grow. He has plenty of room to grow from that standpoint as well. So it's going to be fun to watch him develop and continue to add to the toy chest. Yeah, I agree with Brian here. Third line is better for him right now, but could see him as second line as the season goes on. And that I think that's what we were all hoping for. I think this is what we were all hoping for Yurov. He maybe start him off a little slow. Once he gets the hang of it, he just takes off. And it looks like he's doing that at this point. So if Yurov goes to line 2, who moves down? That's a good point. That's a good question. You'd like to think if one of, it'd probably have to be Johansson. It depends on where they play him. It depends on where they utilize Yurov. If they utilize him as a center, maybe Ek goes down to line 3. I don't know. Depth is a good problem to have. It's a problem that this team does not regularly have, but I would imagine it would be Johansson. If Tarasenko continues to kind of be pedestrianish, I could see him getting moved down as well. Zuccarello is going to be in the top 6 when he comes back. That's pretty much a guarantee. Beyond that, it feels like there are spots that are up for grabs. And I just have to hope. I just have to hope for my sanity that the team doesn't say, well, Marcus Johansson is giving us, a flatline pulse. So let's just keep him there. Again, it's settling for a known commodity when you could have a player that gives you a much higher ceiling, and you're not willing to try it for fear of one mistake or 2 mistakes. It seems like Yurov is playing smart and exerting his energy in the right areas. Ogren is bigger and faster, but speed doesn't help when you go to the wrong areas. That's a very solid assessment. It's just a matter of like I've talked about millions of times. Every player has the light bulb moment at a different point. And at some point, every player that makes it at the NHL level, every player has that flashbulb moment where they're like, I get it. I know what it takes to play at the NHL level. But it happens to every single player at a different time. There's no rule book of when you get to this many games, you just figure it out. It hits everybody at a different time. Just depending on how you read things, how you adapt, it all depends. It all depends on you as opposed to what everybody else has done. With that, I think we are going to put a little bow on this one. I know there were some questions as to where Denny was at this past weekend. No fear. Denny's going to be back on Sunday. His glorious return to his show, the one that's everybody on this channel tunes in on Sundays. Tune in more than they do to Locked On Wilds, where it's not going anywhere. It'll be back on Sunday like it never left. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to our postcast here tonight. Minnesota Wild pick up a 3-1 win over the New York Rangers. I think for tomorrow's episode, we'll look at that very topic of Matt Boldy and Kirill Kaprizov, the numbers with and without, and why that line combination needs to be allowed the opportunity to continue to cook. So that's coming up for you on tomorrow's edition of Locked On Wild. Again, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We got you covered with new episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.